Welcome to the Emotional Mastery Podcast. I am so excited and so honored today to have Ken Close on to talk about the Healy, the quantum field, everything that has to do with all of that magical stuff. So I'm just gonna hand the floor over to you. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, kind of a little bit about your background, where it got you here, anything pivotal along the way, and we will go from there.
Ah, awesome. Well, hey, thank you, first of all, for inviting me here and opening a space and sharing with your audience and where your heart lives. I just that's the blessing that I feel that I contribute to, right? So everybody's got this space in which they orbit, and I love it. So thank you for inviting me. My name was Ken Close. I am by degree, the I am statement, right? My training is in engineering, electronics engineering specifically. And over the last 10 years, though, I've been diving deep into epigenetics, neuroscience, and essentially the energy field in which pretty much everything orbits. And so that's been a journey. My primary nuts and bolts business was around the fitness industry, helping people move up in their performance levels. And again, that's kind of my passion is to empower another human being and give them tools in which they can change their body, heal their body, whether it's somebody wants to feel better in their own skin or perform better in their own sport, either way. So all of that is a healing. All of that is a healing. And that's been my passion for the last, again, now 3.5 years, diving into a technology that's all around the information field, the quantum laws. And so that's been my excitement lately. That's the journey I'm on right now. One of many, but the evolution, it seems natural. It seems necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you talk about the fitness field, and I think that's a space that comes with its own challenges because I think, I look at my own journey of fitness and it began with I was punishing myself, right? And I think a lot of people sort of come into it in that space, right? And so I mean, especially with this technology, I don't know if you still use this within that fitness area, but I think it could be, a beautiful addition to that and sort of like working on all the rest of that stuff that comes with that.
Yeah. So if I could paint a picture, I would like to paint a little bit of a picture around who we are. Why are we here? My philosophy, my understanding from some pretty deep dives into the 4D, the 5D, and so on. And I've had a very diligent practice in meditation. I studied diligently also under Dr. Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, some of the great forward thinkers that I really, really enjoy their training. And if we look at things from what's the purpose of life, or what's the purpose in why we're here, and I totally believe it is to have experience, right? To have an experience. It's individualized. It's for whatever experience you're having. It's for you, and often these experiences are labeled as limiting. And so if we want to understand what does it take to even have an experience within these bodies, one of those things is a thought. It's a thought about what the senses within this body have. We have the way we see, we smell, taste, touch, all these senses, these beautiful senses, this ability that the body has. It's amazing. And then it goes into an organ called the brain. And with that brain, we think, we have a mind. And this mind is where, again, one of the pieces that is a gift to us. Some may beg to differ. Probably none of your audience have thoughts that run away with them or any of that kind of stuff, but it happens, right? And so the mind seems to be a double-edged sword, right? One of our friend in one moment and our enemy and beating us up the next. But yet it has a very distinct purpose. And Michael Singer writes a book called Untethered Soul, and I highly recommend it, anyone, because it really gives a very distinct outline of what the purpose of the mind is. And the mind is essentially the brain in action. When the brain is in action, it is transmuting a mind. And to understand consciousness at the very fundamental level is consciousness. In order for there to be matter of any type, there must be a consciousness to observe it. And it's this mind that interfaces with a consciousness. It's what we're thinking about. It's our ego. It's our personality. It's our belief structures. It's those systems of understanding. So an experience is built based on the mind and its function. But the other part, there's another part to an experience, which is an emotion, right? And an emotion is to the body as thought is to the brain. And those two enrich this experience, the purpose of life, right? And there is, when we start to collect the understanding at a much deeper level around what the brain is doing when it's thinking, and where this mind exists, and then how this body expresses emotion. What's the physics? What's the chemistry? What's the modalities in which that's all happening? So the moment we have a thought of any kind, it's going to energize these synaptic connections, right? It's energy flow. It's electron flow. And when you have electron flow, energy flow like that, it emits magnetic energy. This is just from an engineering perspective. If we want to look at how we move information through the airwaves, like a radio station, there's an antenna up on the hill somewhere, and it's sending a signal out. And any antenna out there that is an antenna is a metallic or conductive structure. Any antenna out there will receive this magnetic signal. And when that magnetic wave moves across an antenna, it induces current flow, aka information. And then your radio system decodes it and it plays your favorite songs. Our body is a walking, talking antenna. It's water and minerals, mostly water, right? And it's conductive. If you don't believe me, just stick your finger in a light socket, right? It's conductive. Trust me, it's going to have an experience. So these bodies are walking, talking antennas. And so this magnetic energy that's all around us is being received by these bodies. And that information on that magnetic signal is then transferred into electron flow in the body, and the body decodes it. So remember what I said about a thought. A thought is energy, electron flow within a synaptic connection, emitting a magnetic wave. So thoughts are everywhere for you to receive. Right? Have you ever approached somebody, a stranger, someone you never knew, and you just felt something? Right? You just kind of like, wow, I feel like I know this person. Or I feel, I need to run. Whatever it is, it's like, I feel something. And this is this receptor system, this antenna of a body that's reading that, as well as ancient information from stars billions of miles away, light years away. And yet, do we listen? Right? Do we actually pay attention? Most of the time, we're too busy for that, right? When you walk up to somebody and you get that feeling like, there's something not quite right, but what do? A lot of times it's like, you're so busy, you just push through it. You just like ignore it. And something winds up not quite fitting. Or you just, I guess by default, maybe decide you do interface with this person, and it becomes the love of your life, right? And you're like, I have no idea how that happened, right? I just stumbled into it. No, there is a divine alignment and a divine purpose and a divine necessity for each one of us. And these experiences that we have, this mind and emotional content having experience, it then winds up being information in the mind that is also, by the way, propagated into a consciousness. And there's this collective that winds up kind of upgrading or shifting or being influenced by all these experiences, all these humans all over the place are having. So many times people think what I'm doing is irrelevant. I can be mad. I can be a jerk. I can be, whatever, and it not influence anyone else. But that's not true. Greg Braden talks a lot about the influence of one of 1,000, because it's energy being emitted outwardly, and there's a amplifier. Ones who are also of the same energy field will amplify the signal. So if you're angry, and you're around other people that are angry, it starts to build a coherent signal around anger. And just think about being at a sports event and you're on the winning side, right? And everybody's cheering and having a great time. And maybe you had a bad day and you're just angry, right? And trust me, you won't be angry for very long. It's too hard to be in that coherent wave that is stronger and bigger than yours. It can sway you into something better. And it can also heal you when you're in that other state of energy. So this experience, this mind, this thinking brain, this feeling body, there is both a magnetic and electrical charges that create this, quite honestly, EMF, and that's electromagnetic force, which a lot of people have a little fear to that terminology, but it's how information is transmitted from one point to another through space and time. It's not like there's an extension cord plugged in from a radio station into your car. It's all done through this invisible, non-physical phenomenon. And this invisible, non-physical phenomenon is what links us all to each other, as well as what I call a divine blueprint, which is within the information field. This is the quantum field. You may have heard many things about quantum science and quantum entanglement and quantum field and quantum this and quantum that. And the reason this is such a hot button these days is because we've outgrown the old Newtonian principle of cause and effect. We've gotten too smart. Too much information at the tips of our fingers, and you don't have to go back to college really anymore to learn so much. And so we've kind of wised up. And through that wisdom, we've understood that now we can cause an effect as opposed to be a victim to an effect. And this is where the quantum field lies, is that this mind is tapped in to an information field, aka quantum field, that anything is available. Anything is available. All you need to do is focus for a moment, let go of some of the noise and chatter, and you'll gain clarity. The thoughts start to dim down a little bit. This information field will start to give you ideas, and I call them downloads. And if you're not sure about if this information field exists, just have you ever had an idea? Have you ever thought of someone and they called you, right? Or have you ever kind of predicted an experience and something similar happened, right? So this is us as this mind, as this antenna, as this body, tuning in to very specific radio frequencies or magnetic signals. And then it transmits out from us and draws in the signature that matches. So this is a very, I guess I would say, powerful manifestation tool. But most of us just operate on default mode all day long. I got to get to work. I got, traffic is such amount at rush hours. I've got dinner to get done. I got kids to take care of. I got deadlines. I've got to take care of my body and get to the gym, all this stuff. And so we wind up spending a lot of energy within this mind on survival, and we don't really listen and allow, and just these little serendipities just so happen every now and then. And it may catch our attention for a minute, but we don't really put a lot of energy into it. So it doesn't necessarily duplicate. So this quantum field, call it the blueprint, is perfect. It's amazing. It's aligned, and it exists within this field of information. But it winds up getting shifted and changed and filtered, because in order for matter to exist, there must be a mind to observe it. Einstein said it himself, the observer effect, right? So you have the waveform, but it's the observer that solidifies it into particle. So this is the observer effect. So in other words, it requires a consciousness, an awareness, to take this soup, this infinite field of information, and solidify it into form. This is how the body's created. There's a perfect blueprint for each one of us. There's no disorder, no disease. There's perfect balance. But then that blueprint gets deciphered through the mind, through a thought, through an idea, through an understanding, through an ego, through a perception, through a belief structure. And then based on that, it becomes material form, right? Material form in the body. And this is a genetic expression. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. The one part of, I guess, I don't know if it's quantum entanglement that I've read about, and I'm always trying to like make sense in my mind. It's just that idea that like, I don't know if it's like the electrons, right? We can't see two at the same time, right? If you focus on one, the other one disappears. And I'm always like, how do we even know that? Like, how can you, I don't know. I guess that's like one piece to me that has always been a little bit hard for me to grasp just on an intellectual level. Um, so I don't know if that question makes sense to
Yeah,
you, but
yeah.
yeah.
It does, because the observer effect, and this is how Einstein created this experiment, by the double slit experiment. So by shooting photons through these two slits, there was a predicted outcome that on the other side there would be a certain order, right? That they would recombine because of the photons interfacing with each other on the other side, and then the projection on the screen would wind up in a specific specific order. And so that was true until it was kind of observed by the scientist. And when it was observed, then what happened was almost a opposite effect. And so instead of creating one particular pattern of order, there was several. And it didn't make sense, because why would something operate one way when it was recorded, and then another way when it was observed? And there's a reason. These bodies, everything has a consciousness, even a rock. But this consciousness within this body, it emits energy. It emits energy. And the unified field, the soup of all things, essentially is magnetic. So like the electron, you've got a molecule of some sort. Doesn't matter if it's skin or water, whatever. There's order, there's balance to the molecular structure. You've got a center, and then you have orbiting electrons building a molecule, and there's balance. What keeps that together? What keeps that together? It's a magnetic field. It's the attraction and repulsion of the energy itself. What keeps the planets in orbit? Same thing. What keeps them, the sun's emissions? How's it get from there to there? Same thing. It's a magnetic field. It's a field, essentially like an ether, a field that all things exist. The oxygen molecules, when we are inhaling air, we take it into our body, and our body does certain things with these molecules. But that same molecule that was inhaled by the dinosaurs is still here with us today, right? Being recycled, reused, re-energized. It's the same energy. Why is it not being dissipated? Because I'm inhaling it, consuming its content, exhaling the waste product, right? Because all energy, everything is energy. It all exists. The only thing that separates the energy of an oxygen molecule or the energy of a lung cell is its frequency. And so how do we exchange the usefulness of an oxygen molecule or the usefulness of an amino acid or a protein? How do we exchange and how do we utilize the usefulness of these things in this body grow and expand and continue because of those benefits? It's because the electron, it shares energy through the electron. So from one molecule to another molecule, it's a shared thing. So let's just use the example of a lamp. You got a lamp on your table and you've got it plugged into the outlet on the wall. And the moment you turn the switch on, the energy from the outlet or from your power source moves through the copper of the wire. But the way that it moves is one electron at a time from one copper molecule to another copper molecule. This is because there's a potential difference. There's a load on one side, the bulb, and there's a source on the other side. And the moment you turn the switch on, it shifts the potential difference. It's no longer balanced. There's a request. There's an ask for energy to illuminate. And so electrons say, I'm in. All right, I got it. Let's go over here and over here and over here. And so they share an electron. It keeps moving. This is current flow. This is measured in amps. It's current flow. And it moves from the source to the load. And then the load does its job. In the case of a lamp, it emits photonic energy or light. Okay. So our body's no different. An oxygen molecule is no different. When you consume oxygen, the electrons are shared. Now, here's the fun part. What is on that electron? Information. That's it. Information. Your body decodes the information of the oxygen molecule, of the electron of it, and utilizes what it needs and then transfers it, changes it. It doesn't get rid of it. Energy is just moved from one form to another, from one frequency to another, right? And then it's gotten rid of whatever, when you exhale the carbon dioxide, and then that that piece of energy becomes useful for something else, right? It's a never ending cycle. And the quantum field, the information field, the content of the information field lives in the electron. And so that's how we can get, like, for instance, every inhale, and this may change the way that you view your breath. The moment you take in a breath, trillions and trillions of electrons containing all the information from the dinosaurs that breathed it in, from the entire universe, you're taking into your body, and your body can decode all of that. How often do we focus on our breath, though? Most of the time we're in some kind of stress response and we're breathing shallow anyway, and we're not really, thinking about our breath. We're just concentrating on the problem at hand. But the breath, and there's lots and lots of practices around the breath to show you how that one breath can shift the nervous system, the vagal tone within your body, shift you from the stress response to the rest response by breath alone, right? So it's an energy exchange. It's an exchange. And so when we have a thought, we're exchanging energy. When we have an emotion, we're exchanging energy. We're working within the non-physical. And Nikola Tesla said over 100 years ago, he said, the day that science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than it made in all the previous centuries in its existence, in scientific existence. And this is the non-physical. So this is the quantum field. We're now studying the non-physical. How much have we changed in the last decade? Mm-hmm. Wait for the next one, right? Mm-hmm. So does that make sense?
Yeah. It's amazing. It's like almost mind blowing, right? And especially, I work a lot with emotions, and a lot of what I do is grounding people into their body so that they can understand and trust those responses, right? Because I think a lot of people I personally too have been in relationships maybe where, like you said, you're an antenna, like your emotions are telling you something, and yet our mind, we tell ourselves like, oh, don't worry about that, or oh, it's fine, or we logically tell ourselves something else, but yet our body is in this, fight or flight response every time we're around a specific person, or the other way around, and we're not trusting it because it doesn't, our trauma tells us that it's not safe, even though, but there's so many mixed messages from our system. And so I think it's really important to like tune into that, to trust that. But I think the mind is the tricky thing there, and like you said, it is and it isn't. It is such a tool for us if we can allow it to be, and sort of, and like you said, Michael Singer, the book, one thing that really changed my mind with him is, yeah, he talked a lot about just sort of like allowing the mind to be, right? Because it's always talking and just being like, okay, I hear you, like, and just like letting it lose its power in that sense so that it can be used for what it's actually designed to be used for. So I think there's so much in that space that just, is amazing. And I know you had said on the frequency school that something that stood out to me was like every second we're creating like 800,000 cells, right? So it's like literally we're changing every single second. And so like, what are you choosing? I think that's such a powerful space to be in.
I love what you just said. What are you choosing? Right? What are you choosing? Because the intelligence, if we understand, like I was talking, laying out a little bit of a principle about where the information field is, it's within the electron. The intelligence is there. And when we take in oxygen, when we take in food, when we take in all these other electrons, even the magnetic signals from another human, we're constantly transducing information. And so where's the intelligence? The intelligence lies in the body. I mean, honestly, the intelligence here is within the body, because the mind makes stuff up, right? And so sometimes you can trust it, sometimes you can't. But neuroscience says that 50%, a little over 50% of what you remember within your memory is wrong. It's false. It's embellished. It's completely rewritten, because the brain doesn't want to be wrong. It can't afford to be wrong. It's asking the limbic brain is asking 3 times per second. That's prehistoric brain, 3 times per second, saying safe, not safe, safe, not safe, 3 times per second. So that the brain then can answer the question. And how is it answering the question? Through your senses, through your sensory information, the input. So it's coming in through your eyes, your ears, your taste, all of the input coming in. Well, what is this sensory perception machine? It's your body. The intelligence is in the body. And so the mind then takes this content and based on a past, based on a history, makes up its belief about the content. Now, the eyes are just a lens, just an organ, right? And what they see is way more than what the brain interprets or allows to be true. I mean, maybe you've heard there's emotional blindness, right? Where a traumatic experience happens to an individual and they lose their sight. And it's because the mind can't cope with what they saw. And so it will shut down the receptor system so that then the host, the entity, the body, the person no longer needs to see anything. So it's a protective mechanism, right? It's a stress response. And once they overcome the emotional trigger of that blindness, they can see again, right? Or a person that was born blind that gets an eye transplant that can't see anything, right? Because the brain hasn't been taught this interpretation, this information. And so they're kind of trying to then decode all this content on the optic nerve, and they don't have reference. So neuroscience also says that by about the time of 30, 35 years old, that you have pretty much had almost all the combinations of emotional experiences and built very specific meanings, and assigned placement of all that. And so that point, you're essentially on an emotional plane of nothingness, right? There's no new experiences coming through, because you can have a trigger. You can take in a piece of content with your senses, and the senses then give that feedback to the brain. The brain says, oh, I know what that is. Oh, that's unworthiness. I got that. I'll let you understand its unworthiness. I'm going to then, and the brain says, oh, unworthiness, I recognize that. And it says, with unworthiness, we have a neural network, a bundle in the brain, that when unworthiness comes, it's attached to a certain chemistry. And so it sends those peptides into the body to express the chemistry in the body. And then the body has the emotion of it, the feeling of it. And now we have, again, this experience of an emotion in the body and a thought in the brain. And we have the experience of unworthiness based on what? Based on a sensory input, right? What we saw, what we heard. I mean, have you ever heard a song and it reminded you of maybe a relationship in high school, right? Or something like that. That moment in high school is when that emotion was made. From that moment forward, it didn't get an upgrade. Nothing changed. Nothing's shifted. Nothing changed. And so the beauty of this is that we have the opportunity to feel these enriched emotions in the body and decide, do they belong in our future? Does what our past created belong in our future? And it's this present moment. And as you mentioned, I've said before, 800,000 cells per second. This is the present moment. At the present moment, am I going to assign the same past understanding and meaning to this sensory input to build and then have this emotion then guide me for the rest of my day or the rest of my week or the rest of my life based on that past experience? Or am I going to sit in this choice point, this present moment, elongate it to the next present moment, and then the next, and then the next, and build 800,000 cells per second with choice as opposed to past, right? And the moment we do that, we teach the body that it has, that this past understanding, this intelligence of the body is a partner with the mind, and it doesn't have to respond to the ways of the past. This is the fruit of change. This is the river of change. The pathway to change is to sit in the present moment, in the suffering, if it may be, or in the glory, whatever it is, and know that this too shall pass. We just need to not allow the past to be the present moment belief so that it becomes our future, right? This is the beauty of the restructuring. And this is the beauty of epigenetics, because to that 800,000 cells per second we've been talking about, 3% of the genetic code making those 800,000 cells is fixed. It's going to be a skin cell, a bone cell, a muscle cell, a brain cell. It's fixed, 3%. Wow, wait a minute. Well, what's the other 97%? It's an adaptive gene. It's adaptive. And it's reading the environment to find out to what quality and kind of the cell, right? 800,000 per second are, and 97% of the gene writing the code is looking at the environment to say, well, what should we be, boys, girls? What should we be? What form, what kind, what quality? And the external environment of the cell is the internal environment of the body. And the internal of the environment of the body is perceiving from the external sensory perception. And so it's the environment that signals the gene, right? And so what we see, taste, feel, touch, and smell is being assigned meaning by what? Past neurological bundles in the brain, and then downloaded into the genetic code of those 800,000 cells per second, and becoming a physical mass of you in space and time. That's just for a minute, sit in that process just for a minute and go, oh my God, I am a victim to my environment. Or go, oh my God, I can assign meaning in a different way and be a whole new self. I can do that. Yes, you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. And it's like, rewiring the brain, I guess, to see it in that perspective, because it is easy to fall into that victim, especially when we're feeling emotions, right? And I think sometimes, the pain that we feel, the suffering that we choose, in a sense, like really brings us into the present, because we're so much feeling it in our body, right? Of course, the mind has an element there, but at least maybe the way I've begun to perceive my own pain and suffering when I'm in emotional lows and going through the things, it's like, I'm choosing this right now to make a difference, to change a pattern because, like you said, we're just constantly repeating these patterns based on what the story our mind attaches to the emotion that we're feeling. And so,
Emotional energy. Yeah.
mhm,
Emotional energy, the emotional charge.
mhm,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. So it's like, how do we utilize all of this information to then make that different choice when it's like so much of our body is just running on past experiences that no longer exist anymore, and we may know that on a logical level, but it's like our entire like system is just moving us to what we've always done.
I love it. I love it. And so here's the beauty. Emotional charge, right? So that, again, especially when it's trauma or pain, suffering,
Mhm.
something that really made us uncomfortable, because we don't want to be uncomfortable, do we? Typically, I mean, you don't want to do something that you don't like. But these beliefs, the meaning we've assigned, are old. They were when we were more vulnerable, right? Younger, impressionable. And so they became our truth. And so those 2-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 8-year-old, 12-year-old teenage years are still our truth as an adult, because the neural bundle, the neural network, the default mode network in the brain, continues to rehearse it. Now, hey, wait a minute, I'm an adult. I'm smarter and wiser and all that stuff. But the past, like I said, by the time you're a certain age, all this content gets believed. and we don't go back to rewrite any stories. We are just in this default mode. And there's no higher emotional charge to challenge those old belief structures. So in other words, let's just take trauma for a moment. If it's physical trauma, there is an association of pain, of some suffering, and we again, that prehistoric brain wants to avoid pain at all costs. So it's going to, how many times per second? 3 times per second. It's going to evaluate the environment. When you're reminded of a trauma, it's going to look at the environment, and it's going to select all of the familiar things that are supporting that traumatic memory, all of the supporting things. So if that traumatic memory was created by a partner, a male or a female, right? And you're in the environment around nothing but women, and the trauma was from a male, your senses will pick out a male way over there to assign meaning for the trigger, right? It's going to find something, because there is a neural bundle, a neural network called the reticular activating system, RAS for short. It is the bundle of your nervous system that goes between the brain and the body, and it processes 400 billion bits of information per second. Sit with that for a minute. 400 billion bits of information per 1 second. And you and I, all the things we're seeing, all the things we're doing, when you're multitasking all day, let's just look at the highest load you've ever been in. That's only 2,000 bits of information you're processing consciously. Conscious mind, your awareness, everything you're aware of is only 2,000 bits. So 400 billion, I'm stretching my arms way out there. You can't see them. Our awareness is only 2,000 bits. Do you think there's a lot of stuff going on in the background that you're not aware of? Absolutely. It's that 400 billion bits of information that just so happens to point out that one guy way over there that's influencing the trauma or the remembrance of the trauma in this present moment. Your system becomes so acute, it will find that 400 billion bits of information. It will find, right? It will find the content to rehearse the memory and make it true. It will do it. So what do we do? How do we get beyond that? This is where the meaning of life comes in. Experience. It's important to create enriched experiences about what you do want, about what you do like, about what does charge you up. And in order to get beyond a traumatic emotional experience of a certain amplitude from the past, you need to build a loving, joyous experience of higher amplitude in the present. And when you do that, how many times have you in this amazing moment of laughter and joy and bliss and peace that you're thinking about trauma. Right? You're not rehearsing that. 800,000 cells per second are building a body, a new you in that, as opposed to the past. Now, the intelligence is in the body, but the more you build a body of a better experience than a rehearsal of the not better experience. Like, in other words, what do I want instead of what don't I want? The better you get at that, it's a practice. It's a practice. But the better you get at it, the body becomes a new version. It's happening every second anyway. You might as well be diligent and purposeful to manifest what you do want, right? But how often, too often, people are stuck in worry, right? This is a gross misuse of the imagination, by the way, folks. Worry is, quote me on this, worry is a gross misuse of the imagination because it's such a powerful tool. But we use it for worry to make up the worst case scenario as opposed to rehearse the best case scenario. And the body doesn't know the difference between an experience you make up in the mind or one you have in your three-dimensional space. It will still genetically formulate a body in space and time to match what you believe.
That's powerful, really powerful. And as you were speaking, I was thinking, going with that same example, of the partner in a relationship and how your mind just picks all of that. I was in a bad relationship in therapy. I had done all these years of work on myself and the meditation, the journaling, and my therapist was like, Rochelle, like, you can do all of that work, but unless you're repairing it in relationship, you're still going to be triggered. And it's exactly what you're explaining. And, it's like, it's in relationship, in those joyous moments, in those loving moments, in those trusting moments, in those vulnerable moments where you can like rewire that. And it takes time. I think everybody wants a quick fix, and it does take intention and time to create those new experiences. And I've noticed I've become so aware of just the words that I speak and try and make them in the positive. And even my kids, they're like, I can't. And I'm trying to like always, like, I lost the word that I'm looking for, but just put them on a different path and using different words. And, so I'm learning, I'm trying, I'll try, instead of just being like, I can't. Cause I'm like, well, if you don't think you can, then you won't.
There's a hack. And I love to give away, hacks all the time, because sometimes when you're in a traumatic response, you've been triggered by an outside influence, a song, or you see a person that's similar to what caused you your pain, or an environment that you have to go into that, some suffering was incurred. There's a hack that sometimes in those cases, it's really hard to find an emotion that's not connected to the past, because the body just remembers it and it becomes it. And seemingly half the time without the thought. It's like, I wasn't thinking that, but all of a sudden I'm feeling that. Well, it's not true, because there was a thought. It was so subconscious you weren't aware of it. And so if we want to go to the gym and work out on the best muscle in the body, the best one that will change your life, that's the awareness muscle. And if we can work that one and just be aware, don't let a thought go by unnoticed, right? Because this has happened. Have you ever been rehearsing a conversation you had 2 days ago over and over and over again? And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
you realize it, like, I've been doing this for hours or days or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm not going to do this. But remember, 800,000 cells per second over days and days and days of rehearsal, you're building a body, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be that old experience. So this is a practice, no different than learning to play basketball. You start dribbling the ball. Sometimes it bounces off your toe and goes over there. And sometimes you lose momentum and it stops bouncing altogether, but it's still a practice. So keep dribbling, right? Keep bouncing the ball. And not just once or twice, not just on Saturday versus, the rest of the week, all week, every day, every second, dribble it. And using the hack to get beyond these past triggers, the hack is curiosity. The hack is curiosity. You may not be able to pull up joy or gratitude when somebody's, in your face, but you can be curious about it and not assign meaning, because curiosity doesn't assign meaning. The brain engages in a different way, as opposed to reflecting on a past knowing. It's curious about a future understanding. Right? This is the fun part. So when we're curious about why this person is screaming in my face, and we're like looking at, wow, what color eyes do you have? You know, or my, what big teeth you have? You know, it's like whatever it is, we are curious. Then we're clear. Then we're clear, because the moment you assign meaning, you go right back to the past, and the body expects the same result, and it will get it. It will get it because the body's precognitive. It will. It has to be precognitive just to survive. And this knowledge, this wisdom in the body, I'll give you my other hack. My other hack is by navigating through an open heart. Now, an open heart has some requirements. It does require vulnerability. And that's something that's a bit tough in this day and age, in a lot of cases. And I find that it's tough in the case of the feminine. And there's been too much misguided energy from the masculine. And I believe that, it's time that we join forces and we really start to honor this immense power within the feminine energy. And I do a practice. I've made this pact almost 5 years ago now with few other gentlemen. And our pact is to hold space for peace, safety, and progress with the feminine energy. And I hold it every day. Every day I hold this space. Just hold it. And remember what I said about magnetic energy and the electron flow? The moment I believe, accept, and surrender into safety for the feminine energy, I emit a signal. It goes omnidirectionally throughout the entire universe. And any other being, any other entity that has a coherent signal similar to mine, it amplifies. It amplifies a little bit, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more. And as we do that, if we understand that even the feminine can do this, by the way, I can have an energy of protection over the feminine energy, the energy of peace, the energy of calm, the energy of healing. And I can hold that. And someone else, you can believe in it too. And when you're believing, and here's the fun part is it's not limited to space and time. So my signal goes out, it's omnipresent. And when you, in any part of your day, decides to get on board that same signal, as well as any other billion people on the planet decide to do the same thing, it amplifies. And then it feeds the ones who are not feeling it. Right? Like I said, being on the winning side of a sports game, one person's mad and the rest of them are happy, right? That coherent signal is going to influence the one person, and it's going to raise their energy. So being curious is an amazing hack to get beyond a past experience. Opening your heart is an amazing hack for allowing a flow of energy, a coherent signal to start healing. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of times you hear, I'm so non-contemporary in so many things. People say that the window of the soul is the eyes. It's not. The window for the soul is the heart. And the bigger you open it, the wider the gaze that the soul has, the better it can guide you, right? The eyes are the feedback loop for the information that the soul is guiding you through. So yeah, it shows the soul what's going on in the world, but your heart is open. That's the wisdom. That's the wisdom. And then when we open this heart, we tap into the wisdom of the soul, and it's millions of years old. Trust me, it is not brand new. It's been here a while. It's gone through a few incarnations, and it's, if you trust that, it's not an easy thing to do because it does require a level of vulnerability. But the heart has over 5,000 times more energy than the brain, right? It's got its own neurotransmitters. It's its own entity. And so when we understand how to build this coherence, this heart-brain coherence, right? We start to create a very coherent body, a very coherent signal. It's called heart rate variability. And it's where the mind has less chaos and the heart has more peace. And the two come together and build this very coherent signal, and it heals. The vagal tone within the body shifts. You move from sympathetic to parasympathetic, from fight or flight to rest and digest, and the healing energy begins. And it's not that this energy is not a 1-to-1 ratio. I mean, every circadian rhythm, we have a certain finite amount of energy, right? When the sun rises, the sun goes down, we're charged up, we're rested, we're ready to go for the day. We have a finite amount of energy. And certain things that we do have a rate of depletion higher than other things we do. And stress is the highest rate of depletion for this energy field. So when we do a practice to move ourselves into the rest phase, into the parasympathetic, it gives energy back to healing. And it's a much higher ratio. It's 100-fold. So it takes a lot more energy to be stressed than it does to be healing. And the natural state of the body is healing. It's natural. It wants to heal. How do you know? 800,000 cells per second are just doing their job, right? You're not doing it. I'm not doing it. The heart's just beating away, keeping you alive. I'm not doing it. It's an intelligence. There's a natural order, a natural intelligence to stay in balance, to stay in healing. It's us. It's this mind. It's this consciousness. It's this beliefs, perception, and past that knocks us out of that into chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think when you're in that heart-centered space, and I mean, that's always been an easy space for me to activate during meditation and everything. I just always feel that expanding. And it just, like you said, the stress, I mean, we get disease, or, it's such a hard space to be in. And yet when we're in that heart-centered space, everything's clear. It's so easy. The ease and flow we're always looking for is just there, even if it's just momentary, right? Just reminding ourselves to come back to that is so beautiful. So yeah, I would love to segue, into Healy and, that technology and, like everything that we talked about, the quantum field and everything, and how that can support us in our journey as well.
Absolutely. So Healy is perfectly designed to work right within the space in which the energetic influence to that 97% of the genetic code is transpired. So remember what I said, that the 97% of the adaptive gene, or of the gene itself, is adaptive, reading what? Energy. And so where is the information field? In the electron flow. So when we connect to the microcurrent from Healy, from side to side through the body, we have electron flow through the body, through the intelligence of this body, giving it what? Information. What's the information? The information is the frequencies from the program being transmitted. And these frequencies are known by the thousands and thousands of experiences to be frequencies of alignment within the systems, organs, and cells of the body. And so this electron flow, what's its source? Well, it's got a little battery in here. It doesn't matter if the electron is in the battery or in a skin cell. The information is still there. But the electron from the battery, when turn the light switch on to request electron flow. So it's the same thing. When you turn your Healy on and you download a program to it, you've now energized the system, and then the source, which is the battery, such as the source, which is the outlet in your house, and the circuitry is the pathway that electron moves from one to the next molecule, to the next molecule, to the next molecule. This is the circuitry inside of Healy. Part of that circuitry is a quantum sensor. It's a tap into the quantum field. From the electronics, in technical term, it's what's called a PN junction. It's two different types of silicon material mated together that are not the same. And that mating position creates a bridge. And I like to describe the Healy in one sentence as a bridge between the quantum field of information and the biological and physical fields of matter. And so the way that's done is electron flow goes from the battery through the circuitry, through the programming of the app-based system, through the PN junction. And where it's going from one side of the junction, which is you're attached via the wires, or you're using the analysis engine, right? The blue dot we know of. You're still a client, or you're still the host or the entity that's being assessed. You're on one side of the PN junction. On the other side of the PN junction is the database or the program, which it's running right now, right? And when the electron flow goes through that junction, it jumps from one space to another. It's a bridge. It's exposed to the environment, right? And that's when information exchanges. And you're connected to it. So it's taking you as an entity, it's taking the information from the database, bridging the two, and aligning them through electron flow. And what's on this electron flow that's going through my body are the frequencies that it has assessed necessary for my alignment. I mean, it's brilliant. It's simple, but it's brilliant. I mean, but it took Marcus Schmieke, our quantum physicist / monk. I love that combination, by the way. It took him a while, and it took him a bit of understanding to collect all of the sciences all the way back from before Einstein, all the way forward to the production and the creation of app-based system. All of these had to come to fruition. If we didn't have the smartphone and we didn't have the apps, we couldn't have Healy. We couldn't have a personal wearable device, because the practitioner-based system, which is not portable, which requires training, which is way more expensive, it's very powerful, but yet we can't give it to billions of people. We can't give it to you to go to the gym with while you're working out and get the frequencies, right? We can't give it to the housewife or the stay-at-home entrepreneur to use while they're on the computer. We couldn't do that. The time waiver system wasn't built for that. But all these technologies came together so that now Healy exists. And the way it works is exactly like I mentioned. The electron flow is the key. It is the source of the quantum field. And you can't see it. It's non-physical, but it's the phenomenon that will change the world in 1 decade, right?
Yeah. And it's so amazing because I've used it on clients. So basically like distance, right? And the feedback, like what someone messaged me was like, wow, the stuff that I've moved through in 36 hours is wild. And it's like, just that this thing can send them, these frequencies from here and, thousands of miles away and work is incredible.
Let's look at the what I mentioned, the blueprint. The blueprint of you is in the quantum field.
Mm-hmm.
What's attached to the quantum field, or what's interfacing with the quantum field? Electrons. All right. So the blueprint's in the field of the healed, whole, complete, open-hearted you. All right. No matter where you are in this physical realm, the field is omnipresent. So when you create a program set, or you do an assessment with the Healy, and again, the client's on one side of that junction, the database is on the other, it finds the alignment tools because the junction is connected to the blueprint, the perfect you. And it finds the dissonance, what's misaligned between that perfect blueprint in the field and the existing you in space and time. And it just finds frequencies to make that alignment, because the only thing that's different between one energy form and another is what? A frequency. So when we can, like I mentioned before, you're at a ball game and you're angry, and you're in a frequency of anger, and the rest of this environment is in a frequency of joy. It's going to raise the vibration of you. It's going to build a coherent signal around joy, right? And your body is going to start to resonate with it, because the body's the intelligence. It can't overcome the environment, right? It's your mind that says, I'm angry. The body's saying, yeah, but these guys are happy and I'm feeling the vibes, man. And so the mind goes, all right. Right. So there is this feeling of alignment. This is how Healy works. This is how Healy works. It's sending information into the body so the body will acquiesce, right? no matter where it is. And so when you do remote things with the Heal Advisor app, the Analyze app, when you're doing remote things, the client is one side of the equation, the resources or the database, the other side of the equation, and that electron flow taps into your blueprint and aligns the two, finds the frequencies that will build coherent signals to amplify the proper energy and nullify the improper. And you don't have to do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I take that back. You do have to accept, believe, and surrender. You do need to say, okay, yes, I like this. I want this. You need to say, anybody in their life needs to say, I'm tired of being like this, right? My awareness
Mm-hmm.
is, I need to do something. That's the first step. I need to do something.
Yeah. And when you're using like the coaching app, like I've set an intention or focus and I'm running it for, do you recommend any longer than the minute and 20 seconds, just multiple times a day, or is that enough?
My entire purpose, and I'm blessed and thank my blueprint, thank the universal field, thank God that my body is healthy, and it's I'm not trying to heal anything, but I always ask the question, what's next? What's next? I love performance. I love to be able to live a life of activity, of ability, of vitality. And so I asked what's next. And when I ask what's next, then I usually will send that signal for a long period of time. I will, use, again, there's recommendations, and the manufacturers have to build recommendations in for the masses, right? There needs to be some parameter, but you are the experiment. Your body is the experiment. Test it, right? Find out what's going on. It's not going to kill you, by the way. It's at worst case scenario, it's going to feel like a detox, right? Because that's essentially the body shedding its past and allowing itself to heal. But if we're not properly hydrated, if we don't have a good self-care protocol, then that shedding of the old self, when these new frequencies are coming in trying to realign you, and there's a shedding, it's an emission. And if you're not properly taking care of yourself, some of that emission, when you sit down to rest and relax and go back to sleep, it may settle back into your joints, back into your muscles, back into your tissues, and it'll feel sore, like flu-like symptoms, headaches, muscle aches. Those are symptoms of detox. People think you're getting sick. No, you're doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing the work. Keep it up. Keep going. But next time, hydrate better before you get here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key. The key is the self-care protocol. Hydration. It is so important, and you should be consuming half your body weight in ounces of water every day, right? That's just a baseline. If you're an athlete, or if you're maybe carrying around a little extra mass on your body, you need to do more. But half your body weight in ounces of water is a good baseline. My other self-care modalities and protocols is movement, because the next thing is to move the body, get these long muscular movements so that you can move the lymphatic system around, because that's, again, part of the cleansing. So that you got to move the good stuff in and the old stuff out. And movement's easy, 15-20 minutes, yoga, dancing, walking. Heck, go roll around on the grass. Now it's a twofer, because you're getting the next one. The third one is grounding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Grounding, allowing yourself to be part of the earth. And if you can't go outside because of demographics, whatever it is, or you live in a concrete world, you don't have grass or dirt, well, there is grounding modalities. There's grounding mats, grounding blankets, grounding sheets. All this connects to a circuitry that's the same electron flow all the way to the earth. There's grounding meditations. There's lots of stuff.
Do plants help? Like if you bring a lot of plants in your house?
So plants are a way of allowing energy to be given away to another entity, which can absorb it. It can absorb it and take it on and down regulate some of the issues that's going on with you. Yeah. And so
Mm.
here's the key. Here's the key, that what you believe is true. It will be true, right? Where you place your awareness is where you place your energy. So stick your fingers in the plant, transplant some plants, go out and do some gardening or whatever in your house, right? Whatever it is, work with the soil. So that's still, you're connecting to Mother Earth. The molecule of dirt has the same intelligence in your planter as it does in your garden outside.
Hmm.
It's got the same intelligence. Why? Electrons.
Hmm.
It's in the molecule of the dirt. It's there. The intelligence is there. So my fourth part of self-care is breathing. Folks, whoever's going to listen to this, what I want you to do is touch your collarbone, and then with the other hand, reach all the way down to the lowest rib on your body. And just look at that span. That's one lung. One lung, right? You have two of them in there. How often do you breathe from your collarbone to your lower rib?
Wow.
Hardly anybody ever does that, right? That's one lung. So fill your lungs, breathe. And the practice should be roughly around 10 breaths per minute. 10 per minute. My average is 6.
Mm.
So that means that you're filling your lungs. When you fill your lungs, you don't need to take another breath for a while. But most people are like, and in order for your body to be in stress response, it requires a short, shallow, rapid breath, right? So breathe from your collarbone to your rib bone, and you cannot be stressed. The body won't be able to move into that sympathetic nervous system because you've held hostage the vagal tone by the breath, because the vagus nerve is feeding 65% of its information is feeding from the body to the brain, the vagal system. And so when you take hostage with the lungs, that vagal tone, the mind has to go into rest. It has to. So number 5 of my self-care protocol is to find a reason to fall in love with life. Have a love affair with your life. Court it, date it, love it. Find a reason to celebrate it. Buy it a present. Take it out to a movie. Find a reason to celebrate life, right? And when you celebrate life, life celebrates you. What you are seeking is seeking you. It happens. It's constant. The magnetic signal goes out, draws in the experience, right? So we think sometimes things are just by accident. Remember what I said? 400 billion bits of information per second in that reticular activating system. It just happened to get you to turn left instead of right, and you found your dream, right? So
Yeah. That is beautiful. And I am going to take that. I never knew your lungs were that big. I'm going to be thinking about that all the time now.
yeah. And you think about, am I breathing from my collarbone to my rib bone?
Yeah.
Am I doing that? Feel where you're breathing. Most people
Mhm.
breathe most of the time just center mass right here.
Yeah.
Just,
Well, and even like thinking about slouching over, we're like pulling on our lungs, right? Or we're not. Yeah. It's
Yep.
interesting.
Yep. Sit up, sit back, change your posture, raise your shoulders, open your chest. Now remember, your lungs are in the back and the front, right? So when you take a breath, I have this little exercise I do. I'll put my thumbs right here just behind the pectoral. I'll bring my pointer fingers together, right? And just take a breath deep. Nope. If it doesn't pull your fingers, it's not deep enough. Anchor your thumbs, point your fingers, take a breath until it separates your fingers. Pull it out. Elongate, widen, expand. That's a breath. That's a breath.
Yeah.
Now you have a measuring stick.
Yeah. I'm going to be doing that.
Your rib cage is designed to expand with the expansion of the lungs. But sometimes you can't even see somebody breathe. You're like, are you alive?
Yeah. My daughter had like a thing at school where they were counting how many breaths they did per minute. And I think she said she was about like like 11 or 12, and all the kids were like, "You're not normal." So she came home and she's like, "Mom, is that normal?" I'm like, "I'm pretty sure that's normal." They're probably breathing too quickly.
10 is awesome. 11,
Yeah.
12, not bad. You
Yeah.
know, you know what? I did this with a group of people. One person was 60, a breath per second.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a
Wow.
lot. So what all that says is your body is now in a stress response. It can't be anything else. And you can say, I'm calm. Yeah. Let's do a breath rate count.
Hmm.
That's the key. That's the sign, because that determines HRV, right? The heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is a measurement of the peak of the sinus rhythm. And it might be, you might be having a 60 beats per minute or 70 beats per minute, but it's probably 59.7, 60.2. It's not 60. When it's 60, that's a perfect heart rate variability. And the way to achieve that is by having the mind and the body in a coherent space, a space of peace, a hack of curiosity, if you want. You don't have to say, I feel peace. I feel peace. And then you're like, I don't feel peace. Right?
Mhm.
Just sit there curious about your breath. Just curious about the smell of the air. Just curious about the feeling of your eyes. Not what you see, but what you feel your eyes. Feel your eyes. Anybody ever feel your eyes? I love the feeling of my eyes. Just change something. Be curious, right? And then you can, this is the hack. And I believe, that every single human body is here for a very distinct reason. And when you open your heart, you'll find out why. Because you tap into the soul and you're going to get new information. It's a vulnerable thing to do. And trust me, I will caution you. I want to give a disclaimer right now that when you choose to open your heart, you will see everything differently. And what you used to believe in will no longer be true. Where you used to see and be okay with chaos and disorder will no longer be okay. And the things you do, the people you see, the places you go will have a whole new meaning. So put on your helmet, buckle up, because when you open your heart, life may turn upside down for a minute. But that's why, because you've never looked at it from that perspective. Right? You keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's what the definition of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's turn it upside down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Choose something different.
I'm in.
Yeah. Me too.
I've been doing this for a long time. And when I first started this, I came back from a Dr. Joe event and I didn't fit. I did not fit my life. I didn't fit any of it. Business, political influence, family, friends, associates. I didn't fit any of it. And, I didn't know what to do. I was like, now what? I don't feel good in this. I don't feel good in that. I don't feel good in either. I started noticing the complaining and the blaming and the incoherence and the mismatch. I started seeing, I'm like, why did I not see this before? It's because the moment you have an aha experience, knowledge and awareness is an inverse pyramid. The aha is at the point. It upregulates all your knowledge, everything you think, believe, and understand. And it's instantaneous. The nervous system is instantaneously upgraded. In the moment you have an aha moment, correct me if I'm wrong. Have you ever had an aha moment? What happened? You looked at things differently. You read a book, right? You went to an event. Somebody told you an amazing piece of information, or a catastrophic event. It's an aha moment. And people change for one of two reasons, I believe: an enlightened education or a catastrophic event. I choose to change in a state of peace and information, as opposed to suffering and chaos and disorder. And we can We just need to choose it. And so I didn't fit. I had to figure out how do I change things? Well, I got this brilliant idea of creating a mastermind group. I'm going to find people who understand what I'm saying. I spoke foreign language, but I found people who understood what I was saying and wanted it too. I started teaching the universal law. I just needed something, a book club, a study group, something. Well, that's what I did. I started drawing in people. That group, I mean, that was over 10 years ago. That group is still going today. I'm not the head of it anymore. There's some people who stepped up and said, hey, we'll do this. But that's the way you do it. You start a movement. You find out who you are because we need you. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful and powerful. And yeah, I've felt like massive shifts over like the last, I would say 7 months, and it's been a culmination of everything coming into this point. And, I started with Healy back in February. And so it's only been a couple months, but I feel just so much even since using this. So
well,
yeah.
remember where Healy interfaces. Healy interfaces in the non-physical.
Mm-hmm.
Basic phenomenon of the creation of life. Right there at that genetic signal, right there at that energetic alignment in frequency, right there within coherence of who you are. And it hacks the signal. It hacks the signal. I mean, we talked a little bit about fitness, and I'm going to give you a little background of what I've been doing. I'm a martial artist. I taught for decades. And I've always been about performance, moving the needle of the body to the next level. And as I started learning things about nutrition, and I was doing performance nutrition coaching, and I started learning things about neuroscience, and I started implementing certain things around thoughts and behaviors and beliefs. I started learning more about epigenetics and started influencing the codes. And I was working with a trainer for years. I was working with a trainer. And as I was working with a trainer, I started down regulating my workout to see what I could do as a minimalist. And I got down to from several days per week to 1 day per week, 30 minutes. And because I was focused in my mind, I was diligent in my nutrition and my chemistry, right? And I had a belief structure that couldn't be shaken. And I was just efficient in what I did in the gym. So my trainer and my gains kept going up. I took the state title in a lifting competition. There was documentation, things were changing. And then I was introduced to Healy. And Healy came to me in a meditation in 2018, January 2018. It wasn't here yet. It wasn't invented yet, but all the technology came to me. I'm an engineer, so I understand that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until a year later, January 2019, a buddy of mine in Australia said, hey, remember that technology you were telling me about a year ago? I told him all about it. He says, yeah, a quantum physicist / monk invented it. Do you want to introduce it in the United States? I'm like, yeah. So I couldn't get the product in the United States, but I knew how it worked. I had friends all over the world. And so I started talking to them, people in Australia, people in Japan, people in New Zealand. I started speaking to them, and they were like, oh my God, yes. And that's where I built my business. And then meanwhile, trying to get one into the United States for me to get my hands on, finally did. And then when I got my hands on it, I told my trainer, I said, hey, I'm doing this technology and I believe I can make some changes without you. And he's like, yeah, whatever, the contemporary model, if you got to do this to get that. And I said, oh, let's see what the quantum field can do. And so, I downregulated my workout, like I said, to 30 minutes once a week. And then a little over 2 years ago, I told him, I said, bye, I'm going to do it without the gym. So for 2.5 years, I haven't been in the gym. I run meditation because, again, the body doesn't know the difference between something you make up in your mind or something that happens in your three-dimensional space. The body just simply gets on board with the code, the energy, and the muscle cell becomes triggered. Then I started implementing the signal of the fitness program into my body. right, for muscle. Then I started hacking it with 2 Healys. With the coil, I was running the energetic signal for strength, and with the microcurrent, energetic signal for muscle. So what was I doing? The genetic code, 97% of the adaptive code was reading muscle and strong. So I was building strong muscle. So my body is still very low fat percentage, but the muscle in my body is still growing.
And you're running in meditation, like you're visualizing yourself running and running all this on.
I'm in my
Amazing.
meditations. I am visualizing moving iron,
Hmm.
moving weight. I'm
Mhm.
feeling the load. I actually, to be honest, in my meditations, I don't even lift anything. I just feel the load in my body. And again, the body doesn't know the difference. The body says, I got a load. I got a load. I got to build a body to adapt to the load. And
Yeah.
so that's all I do.
It's
So
amazing.
we can hack things.
Mm.
I won't take my shirt off, but I guarantee you, it's like, in my birthday's coming up, in June, I'll be 60.
Hmm.
And I am hanging out with my sons, which are in their 30s. And, I'm doing the things they're doing. So
Yeah. I think there was an experiment too about people who are visualizing themselves lifting weights and people who are lifting weights. And the difference in like was so minimal between the actual physical doing and then just the visualization.
the increase was 34% in the ones that were
Mhm.
doing and 27% in the ones that were meditating.
Yeah. That's incredible.
I'll take a 27%
Yeah.
increase in muscle mass without going to the gym every
Right.
day, because
Right.
I can spend that time that I would be in the gym creating something of healing for the world,
Mm.
right? I, c-
Mhm.
that's what I do.
Yeah. That's
My
amazing.
next mission is to open healing centers all over the world. And we're going to use 144 different healing modalities, including frequency, microcurrent, and information field technology, to move the body from suffering to healing.
Mhm.
And all that is just getting the stuff that's in the way out of the way.
Yeah.
Not only do we don't necessarily have to push and force to change anything. We just make it obsolete. That's the beauty. To push and force and grind and cuss and spit and have a problem with that's consuming energy, building stress response. But if we go to the other side and focus on what we do want, we can make it obsolete. Viktor Frankl writes a book called Man's Search for Meaning that he wrote while he was in the Nazi prison camp, fending for his life. And he's a psychotherapist. During that time, he understood, he kept focused on life. And he, again, instead of his group being moved into the killing train versus the living train, right? Remember, he had an energy emission from his body to live, a purpose to live, not a worry to die, a purpose to live. And that purpose to live sent out a signal. And the reticular activating system of the guard saying, you go this way, you go that way, just so happened to choose him going this way.
Hmm.
And every single time there was a life or death decision, and he maintained an energy of life, he influences the environment, and the reticular activating system in everyone around him chose a different path for him. So he created a system called logotherapy, which is essentially that, to give you, instead of rehearsing the past and have you bring into the present moment you're suffering, no, let's bring into the present moment what you want and focus on that.
That just shifted my mindset completely. That's
Make it obsolete, my
yeah.
friend.
Yeah. I have one final question that well, it is tied in, but like kind of not. Have you heard of human design?
Yes, I
You
have.
familiar with it? Do you know what you are?
I am a manifester. So, I mean, I can't remember exactly the details.
Mhm. Okay.
I want to say kin 69 is my the kin number. I don't know. I can't remember all the details, but
Mm.
my I mean, I'll happily share my information. You look at my chart. And again, I love human design because within the codes, lies every bit of life,
Yeah.
right? Not just human, but every bit of life. So if we understand certain tendencies, this is the thing about any modality, whether it's hypnosis, human design, good diet, whatever it is, whatever the modality is, there's benefit in the modality. And there's information in the modality. And if we know certain aspects that are better for us than the other, or precursors for what's potential, then we can just kind of understand that's an awareness level that we can navigate with. It's a tool to help us for navigating. It's not until we make it our law, our religion, our only, that it becomes a crutch. It can become a crutch. And Healy's no different, everybody. Healy's no different. I'm not saying that this is the only way. I'm just saying it's a better way. And so we find these better ways, and human design is a better way, right? I believe network marketing is a better way, to be honest with you, because it's people boosting people. But it's important that the people boosting people are doing it authentically, honestly, and from the heart. So I don't think we can miss if we do it from the heart. I mean, these modalities are just awesome tools.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about, I mean, you want to talk about human design?
Yeah,
I love.
well, I use human design as a tool in my coaching. That was like sort of the thing for me that shifted my entire perspective on myself. It was like, it gave me acceptance of myself and it allowed me to understand energetics on a different level than I had perceived before. And so when I came across the Healy and started learning about that, and then I saw there was an I Ching section, there was a chakra section, and my mind was just like smash the two together. And I'm like, this is so powerful. So as I go through and do like the aura scans and I see the chakras, I'm always relating it to human design and the gates and the channels and, things like that. And so I think it's such a beautiful, like you said, support and tool. And I know myself, even in my practice, I had to take time away because it became that. It became me instead of supporting me in who I am. And so I took like a year to really center in myself. And despite what anything else tells me, to come to my own truth. But yeah, I think using those two in combination really excites me on a personal level, and in my coaching and using that with clients, it's really cool.
And that's wisdom. That's wisdom. What you just said, that's wisdom. And I honor you. I mean, I applaud you, because that's a wisdom. That is emotional maturity, right? That is getting beyond the influences of the body, no matter what they are. And it's also what's called hedonic calendaring. Hedonic calendaring is a purposeful timing in which we stop all these modalities so that we can see what this body is without it, right? Because you never see contrast unless you stop doing something. Right. And this is the thing of what I was talking about earlier in terms of an emotional charge around suffering and trauma, right? It has an amplitude. It's not until you build another emotional experience that you do want with a higher amplitude that you can overcome. This is contrast. And this is one of the most fundamental principle that I build is to create contrast around everything, right? Question what you believe in, question what you do, question what you're feeling, be curious, because it's all tied together. And then you can see the contrast. And it's so many people look in the mirror with these affirmations, go, I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'm thin, I'm, amazing. And they look in the mirror and they're like, I don't see any of that crap. The mirror and your mind have this contrast. And the purpose of the mind is to make sense of the environment so that it can survive. Again, this is Michael Singer talks about this in his book, to make sense of things. And so if you're looking in the mirror and you're creating some mind thing that is so far off, then wow, it's not going to work. You've got to find something believable. Open and work your awareness muscle, open your heart, and start building a magnetic signal. You're going to attract who you want to be, because what you're seeking is seeking you, right? I love it.
Yeah.
It's all magnetic. So let's just build a magnet that draws it in. Right.
Yeah, we're doing it. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything. I mean, this has been absolutely amazing and incredible. I'm so grateful to have you here and everything that you shared with the audience. I mean, yeah, wow, it's gonna create so much impact. So,
Well, Rochelle, thank you. I really honor
mm,
what you're doing. I mean, you are the change that we want to see in this world, right? This is really necessary, and to take what we know in our heart, our wisdom, right, and to share that. Every time I've gone into a meditation, um, when I come back, it's first for me and then for everyone else. Right? So go there, tap into the information field, tap into the quantum signal, tap into your blueprint, and then bring something back and share it with me.
mm,
Right? Share it with you.
yeah,
Share it with everybody.
hmm yeah.
Thank
If you want to just let everyone know too where they can find you. Yeah.
Well, so I have, you can send me an email. It is very simple. kenrclose@gmail.com. I don't make it difficult. You can send me an email and say, hi, I love what you're saying. Who are you? I get this often. Who are you? And so that's the best way to get me. And then, we correspond from there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.